What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the ASTROLABE. Hit the like button if you're on your way in, and welcome. This is going to be a little bit shorter show than usual. Hopefully, I've set it up a little bit shorter, and I've got evening plans tonight. Going to go meet with my dad, who is in town for business, and it'd be very good to see him. So, this is going to be a short one, but it is going to be a punchy one. I've got some great stuff today. Like 3 or 4 different stories that could all merit being the title story, the main story, and I'm going to cram them all into one. So hopefully this is a good one. Do me a favor, hit the like button, share the show, tweet it out. Comment, like, subscribe. Give me all of the interactions. You can send a super chat if you have any questions or any comments you want me to highlight. And you can also go to the link in the description, buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. You can buy me some coffee, buy me some beers. I think it's beers. Buy me some beers. If you appreciate what I'm doing, you want me to keep doing it, then that's one of the greatest forms of feedback you can give me. Also, kingpilled.com. Join the Kingpilled Discord. And I think that's all the shilling I've got for now. Let's jump right into it. I don't really have any slop, although this first one is kind of slop. But this ties into the vibe shift. We got a couple interesting commercials that have just been released. We looked at the Jaguar one the other day, and all I had to show you was the first frame. You didn't need to see any more than that. But these ones here we're going to watch all the way through. The first one is Bud Light. Bud Light has released a commercial mocking the woke culture.
It is not just a fragrance. It is a feeling. It is a passion.
What? Oh, where'd you get a snake?
We are all lost.
Yeah, I'm lost. I'm 100% lost here.
But we are on the edge.
Hey, all right. This is pocket full of sand? Yeah. Hey, I think I'm in the wrong commercial.
What?
Yeah, dude, this isn't right.
Wait, aren't you Andre?
No, I'm Shane. My name's Shane.
Huh. Oh, I see what's going on. You're supposed to be in a Bud Light commercial.
Oh, I'm supposed to be in a Bud Light commercial, not here. So that's why I'm the odd one out down here.
Well, if you're here, Andre is...
Love it here. Oh, yeah. Something is different about you, man.
I just ordered some wings in that other commercial. You think they're gonna make it here? You guys like wings? You blue cheese guy? Ranch girl? You're a ranch girl. You guys like blood or something?
So like I said, it is kind of some slop. Slosher says, I'm glad Shane's getting paid, but I'm not drinking tranny fluid. Tranny fluid, that's very good. I haven't heard that one before. But I have to admit, it's pretty clever. They're having the surrogate Trump star in their ad, but they're kind of like making the ad so that he's not actually starring in the ad. So I think this is done entirely cynically, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's done cynically. It's being done. They heard the market and they responded to it. And this tells you what they perceive the market to be. A lot of these companies that were doing the whole DEI wokeness, the components of that was mostly done cynically as well. They were doing that because they were like, well, here's what all of our marketing experts tell us that the that the market wants. So this seems to be the thing that's in vogue. So that's the thing we're going to take part in. Now, there's individual people, as what's his name, Robbie Starbuck has highlighted. With a lot of these companies, there are individual people among them who are true believers, but those people are outnumbered. The majority of people are just there to just like do their job. And okay, our job is to sell Bud Light. What can we do to increase Bud Light sales? And we're going to follow whatever we perceive the market to be. So this is telling you what they perceive the market to be. So this is still part of this this vibe shift. And the fact that Shane Gillis is in it, the guy who's been Trump for a while now, means that this is spiritually kind of like having Trump in the commercial to the minds of the people who would be producing it. The previous iterations of Bud Light would have been like the fact that they produced the ads that they did before is an indicator that they had people within the company, the spirit of the company was motivated by a desire for that, which corresponds with a revulsion at the idea of anything associated with Trump or anti-wokeness. So now the company is just fine having that in there because they think it's actually going to be better for their company and not worse. This is part of the entire normalization and acceptance of Trump. Trump is now like mainstream. He's recognized to be mainstream. And the anti-Trump forces are a fringe, a smaller minority group who are more and more starting to feel like they have to fight for their lives. An even stronger signal is this one from Volvo.
Hey.
Hey. You okay?
Yeah. Well...
Hey, love.
Hey, Mom.
How are you guys? How you doing?
Yeah, we're good.
Something wrong?
No, but we've actually got something to tell you. Kate's pregnant.
Oh, I'm joking.
You're gonna be a grandma.
Oh my god. How does it feel?
I'm scared, Mom.
Why are you scared?
About it all, you know? The nights, the responsibility, like, we're gonna need a bigger place.
Help with all that.
I know, bless you, you're so sweet. I've got this feeling that we're gonna have a daughter. Just as stubborn as her mum.
Well, hopefully not. The family's large.
Now that's a legacy she might have to live with. She might be the reason we tied a knot.
What if I don't do good in class?
I just want to say and do the right things, you know? I want to see the world with her. I'll also be happy staying home, doing nothing, letting her be a kid.
Are you awake?
Number 32.
Thank you.
I want to see her fall in love. But I also know what that means. And I know she's gonna bend the rules just like I did. And one day, I'll have to let her go. I'm excited to hear what she learns about the world, herself, what she adores, what she hates. I hope she likes the name we give her.
Have you thought of any?
It all depends. We like Leia.
Now that is a frickin' ad. And as Taylor Brown said, they broke out the big guns to make that ad. It was shot by Hoyte van Hoytema, the cinematographer of Interstellar and Oppenheimer. Definitely not an accident. So as you guys are pointing out in the comments there are hat tips in there. I have to pay attention to who she adores. This might be the reason that we get married. There's but even that one. So what they're signaling is that having kids is good, is something to be protected, and is a motivation for marriage. So there apparently is a connection between marriage and having kids, and this is all a good thing. This is such a huge U-turn from all of the corporate messaging over the last however many years. It's a very, very strong signal. And I don't know how you can possibly watch something like this and not just have your heart warmed. Yes, of course it's not perfect. Of course there's little things in there. But the overarching theme of it, the message that it's delivering, this is what marketing and advertising is about. Like, this is why it's been weaponized against us. So to have it turned back around, and like, marketing and advertising is going to exist. It's not like you're gonna like make this go away or something. When companies, the successful companies, when they want to sell how good their brakes are, they make a freaking movie. Because they're defining their brand. They're defining their values. They're promoting what they think is good. Because you can get brakes anywhere. But you want to get brakes from the company that endorses the nuclear family and is pro-natalist, that panders to those values. That's the company you want to get your brakes from. It's a masterclass in branding, and it sends a very, very strong signal about where corporate America's brain is right now. Got five somethings. I think it's Brazilian. Is that liras? Brazilian liras? CG Constantini says, I take full responsibility for my doomerism. Here's some devalued currency. Thank you for the currency, sir. We'll be touching on the doomerism here in just a minute. But before we get to that, we've got a couple short clips. This one here. John Bolton says money saved by Trump's Department of Government Efficiency can go right into the defense budget. Quote, I'd be delighted if we save billions. We could spend it on the defense budget, which desperately needs an increase.
Look, Musk may have a big role here. It's not entirely clear what Trump is going to do with this Department of Government Efficiency. If we can save a couple $100 billion, I'd be delighted. We can spend it on the defense budget, which desperately needs an increase. Look, Musk may have a...
Now, you can look at this. We're going to get a pattern here today in all these stories. You can look at this and you could say, oh, see, that's what they're going to do. Here's the stereotypically conservative response. The online doomer. Oh, see, anything that the Doge isn't going to accomplish anything, and even if it does, then the neocons are just going to scoop that right up and funnel it into the military-industrial complex. All right, thank you for publicly demonstrating that you have an elementary school level understanding of the current geopolitical situation. No, what this is John Bolton submitting. This is John Bolton saying, yes, the Department of Government Efficiency is going to go take out a bunch of terrible spending, and I'm hoping that I'm shifting my narrative now. I'm talking past the close and hoping, I've accepted this is going to happen, but I'm hoping I can get it funneled my direction. The dude who's taken just about more L's than anybody in public life over the last few weeks. Oh, please, give me that money. He's already conceding that it's going to happen. Andrew Torba says, every day the idols and false gods of the post-war consensus crumble a little bit more. Every day I get a little more white-pilled. Look at this. Look what Joe is talking about. Let me speed this one up a wee bit. Try to prevent, because this is on YouTube, so trying to make sure YouTube doesn't go after it.
The Nazi thing, the fact that it's so horrific, it just like puts anyone who has anything to say that's coloring outside the lines. You get labeled a Holocaust denier, an anti-Semite, the worst labels that they can put on you. And a good example of that is that podcast. Oh God, I forget his name. But it was the Tucker Carlson controversy where he had this guy on his podcast and he was talking about what William Churchill's role in the Holocaust was, because they had put these embargoes on Germany and basically starving everybody to death. And they just started calling him a Holocaust denier. And that's like not what he was talking about at all. That's not what he was saying at all. He was just saying, no, there's a multifaceted explanation for why they decided to exterminate all these Jews. And part of it was because of an embargo where they were starving people out. What is his... Daryl Cooper. And what is his podcast called? It's excellent. I listen to it all the time, but my brain's not working right now. I just got out of the gym. I'm on meathead mode.
So Joe is listening. This is confirmation. Joe is listening to our friends.
I know what you're talking about. I'm drawing a blank on it as well.
Martyrmade, that's right. Martyrmade. He's Martyrmade on Twitter and Instagram. And, you know, to call that guy an anti-Semite or a Holocaust denier is so stupid. He's a brilliant guy, and his podcast is excellent. And he's really sensitive and well-balanced, and he gives a very comprehensive view of things. It's not in any way prejudiced. It's a great podcast.
But you're not allowed to color outside the lines.
Well, yeah, that's all he was just saying that Churchill was one of the villains.
Yeah, and that's realistic. Like the multiple different reasons for that. You tighten up their belt, that's not gonna be passed to the top. That's gonna go straight to the people in the camps.
Exactly.
It's real. That's no-brainer shit.
Right, and that's
I don't
not
have to see the podcast to
justifying
put it
the
together.
murder of all those Jews. That's not what he's
Clearly.
doing. That's where it's so crazy about stifling discourse.
Yeah,
because that was a fascinating conversation, and we should be considering that. Like, wow, that's crazy. There were so many factors, so many horrible things going on all together.
Well, they say you're supposed to learn from history, but how the fuck are you going to learn from history if you actually take the lessons out of it?
Right.
I mean, this is an important thing here. You think about this right now with the stuff in the Middle East in the last 20 years. Every time we put an embargo on there, we're not starving Saddam Hussein. We're starving the people in his freaking prison. So remember that.
Dave Smith was talking about that on a podcast recently, that during the Clinton administration, the embargoes starved to death 500,000 children.
Yeah, see, that's fucked.
Yeah.
And that's worth remembering. And it doesn't, if having that conversation makes somebody call you a Holocaust denier, that person should be out of the conversation, in my opinion.
Right.
And like you were saying, academia is chock full of this kind
and
of
they should be
right
shamed.
Now.
They should be shamed by people who want to know the whole picture.
It's the opposite of knowledge.
Right. It's certainly not condoning holocausts. It's so stupid to not be looking at everything.
As Wolfgang Graves says, Boomer Truth is collapsing at a record pace. And Slutty Milk says, I saw the freaking Hodge twins talking about how they saw one of those AI Hitler speeches on YouTube and were surprised at how normal it sounded. Oh, yeah, man. The Hodge twins are like, some of the clips, I don't watch them at all. They've always been slop to me. But, oh, boy, they are going probably further than just about anybody in talking about this stuff, to the point where I'm skeptical of them. They're almost a little too over the top, but hey, it works. Okay, so it's Brazilian reals. It's basically 20 US cents. A couple more from CG Constantine. We've got our Brazilian friend in the house. You can stay, man. You can come. You can come. I don't know if you're here or there, but I imagine you're probably there. But I'll accept you. I'll vouch for you in the country. This is an interesting headline. We'll see if this turns into anything. Patchwork drops in the chat. Breaking. 2 ambulances and several vans that appeared full of Secret Service officers have left Mar-a-Lago, Florida in the last few minutes. That's very interesting. Do me a favor, and if there's any more big updates that drop while I'm talking, drop them in there. He has plans to move to Tennessee. Awesome. Awesome. We will accept you, sir. Here's another tearjerker for you. Trump border czar Tom Homan just teared up live on cable TV when talking about the Lake and Riley case. You know who I'm excited about? I'm excited about Tom Homan. I think we need to preemptively build a statue for Tom Homan.
You know, Laura, a lot of people ask me why I get so emotional when I do Fox News and why I scream at members of Congress. Because I've seen so much tragedy. I've talked to hundreds of angels and moms and dads who buried their children because they're killed by illegal alien. This is the latest. You know, I've talked to little girls as young as 9 years old that were raped multiple times by members of cartel. When you look in her eyes and everything innocent and pure has been ripped from her soul, and her life will never be the same. I mean, it's just, I'm tired of it. And the government failed the Lake and Riley family. Not only, if President Trump was president, he'd be sitting in Mexico in the Remain in Mexico program. And if he did get to New York and he was arrested for injury to a child in New York, I used to be able to arrest him because the priorities under Trump were if you're in the country illegally, you're a target. But because Secretary Mayorkas put the priority so low, even the injury to the child didn't meet the standards, so ICE could even place a detainer on him. So this is purely, it could have been prevented. This young lady's dead, and I want every mayor, every governor of a sanctuary jurisdiction to listen to that tape, listen to this young girl fight for her life, fight for her breath, trying to survive, terrified. Think of I want you to understand what she went through. Like the 9-year-old boy, that 5-year-old boy in the back of the tractor trailer that I held, I found him dead, that baked to death. I thought about what the last hour of his life was like. You need to listen to this tape. And for those governors and mayors who are saying they're going to stop Tom Homan, they're going to stop President Trump, shame on you. Your responsibility is to protect your communities, and that's what we want to do, is protect your community.
I love the man. So let's get to the news here. Matt Gaetz. I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There's no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle, thus I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. I remain fully committed to see that Donald J. Trump is the most successful president in history. I will forever be honored that President Trump nominated me to lead the Department of Justice, and I'm certain that he will save America. So this is, as soon as this dropped, immediately, the Grug maxed. Straight Buster says Homan speaks exactly how he looks. Totally Grug maxed. As soon as this dropped, you had the doom posting commenced immediately. And we need to get our shit together, folks. We need to get our shit together. If the libs are championing a win, what they perceive to be a win, then why on earth would you be publicly conceding that to them? This is a narrative war. Now, we don't know exactly what's going on here. There's a whole bunch of different explanations, and any of them is potentially viable until we get more information. Is it possible that the Trump transition just fucked up and they thought they could get him through and they weren't able to? Yeah, that's possible. Is it possible that what everyone was speculating when he was put out was that, okay, there's no way they're going to get him through. He's the big ask that you negotiate down to something where you still get better than you would get otherwise. People were saying that when he was first nominated. They're like, oh, this is a fantastic pick. If he gets in, great. And if not, then you've leveraged someone else in. You give a sacrificial lamb and get someone else in. Now, having Gaetz as AG would be very, very nice. He's obviously the most radical, the most the closest to being one of our guys. Having him there would potentially that's the what did I say in the King Pill Discord? I said that's like the kick in the front door and light everything on fire pick. Now, there are downsides to that. Downsides to that are that means every single thing that happens there is going to have a massive spotlight shined on it, and it's a lot easier to work in the dark. Now, there's no way that any effective Trump Attorney General is going to be able to work in the dark, period. But having a really effective one with baggage is not necessarily as good as having a really effective one without baggage. I don't care about the baggage personally. I'd like to see them be able to just shove him on through. But there are still realistic externalities that have to be considered. The Trump team has a massive mandate. They've got the right people there who are ready to take advantage of that, in most cases at least, in an overwhelming case. But there's still political realities that they have to contend with. Some of that is going to be making trade-offs. You can kind of see this in the tenor of a lot of their picks, where most of the foreign-focused picks are a lot closer to standard regime-type people like Marco Rubio. And then the domestic picks are much more Trump's concern, which is how Trump rules in the first place. That's the whole notion of make America great again. So, is Gaetz withdrawing because this is a genuine oh, fuck, we fucked up. All right, we got to get someone else in there. Was this planned from the beginning? Or there's a third possibility that this was considered as a contingency You got to play your cards as the things are happening. And so we're going to put him out there. We're going to see if we can get him through. And if we can't, then we have a contingency fallback because there's a lot of other things that could happen with him. There's been people saying that he could be appointed to Marco Rubio's Senate seat, which I think is, it sounds like someone dropped in the chat. I think that's been confirmed. That's not going to be the case. And I've been thinking it seems like there's way too much momentum building behind Laura Trump for that position. So I kind of don't think that's going to happen. And it seems like it for sure isn't going to happen. What I've also seen, and I've seen this from enough people, and I haven't seen a compelling case against it, is that his resignation was a resignation from the 118th Congress, but he was just elected to the 119th Congress. So he's resigned. All he has to do is send another letter and say, I'm going to be seated for the 119th Congress, and he can go right back to his seat. That's possible. And if he couldn't do that, then he could run in the special election for that position. And he was just elected before, so he'd likely be elected again. That's a possibility. Another possibility that I've seen floated out, I think this is unlikely as well, but it is conceivably a possibility. Ron DeSantis is appointed Attorney General. His lieutenant governor becomes the acting governor until the end of his term in 2027. And she appoints Matt Gaetz as lieutenant governor. That's another possibility. There's a lot of directions this would go, which means since all of these are conceivable on some level or another, and there's so many moving parts going, weighing in on this as to whether it's a mistake or just part of the process right now is not, you're just speculating. Literally every take on this is just going to be speculating unless it's from someone who actually has inside knowledge from the Trump campaign. I don't think it's very obvious that the incoming Trump administration now is not comprised of the same types of people as it was before. The people who are driving the train now are absolutely 4D chess type people. That's the way that they've been operating, especially guys like Elon and Vivek. They're coming in with a clear plan, and they're fully aware of what the state of play is. So it's not cope to say there could be some sort of plan here, because a lot of these things I've just described aren't even 4D chess. These are just like natural political plays that can be made. The other utility in putting, so like let's run with option 3, where this wasn't necessarily the plan, but it was considered as a fallback, given which pieces moved where. What they've just done now is done a very public show of which Republican senators, when on the biggest, toughest decisions, are going to bail on Trump. Now they've been isolated. There's 4 of them. And Elon is already on the record saying that he's going to pour a ton of money into primarying anyone who doesn't work with Trump. They don't necessarily even need to primary them. They just need to apply massive political pressure on them until they crack. So it's now clear. And if there was 4, which was Collins, Murkowski, McConnell, and what's the guy's name? The new one in Utah. The rumor is that those 4 were no, 100%. There's nothing they could do about it. You can say, oh well, they could just recess appoint him. Well, that comes with its own set of potential problems. And if they're looking at doing a lot of different recess appointments and they want this done as quickly as possible and not dragged out, they want to reduce the surface level for attacks from the opposition to slow things down, then they got to start horse trading. So recess appointing Matt Gaetz may have just been too politically infeasible. Like you might be able to get him through the normal process, but recess appointing him was just gonna cause too much trouble. There's so many different ways that this could go from here that our only option is just to wait to see how it plays out. And in the meantime, while we're waiting, if we're going to start speculating, there is absolutely zero utility in publicly speculating about, oh, maybe Trump's just fucked up. Maybe they're just retarded. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Oh, this is such a big error. That's not to say you can't acknowledge that it's potentially an error. But assuming that to be the case and publicly pronouncing that doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything positive. If you are having the same reaction to something that the libs are, then you should be questioning yourself. If they're saying, yes, this is a victory, and you're going, oh man, it's a victory for them, then this should be very obvious. I shouldn't have to say all this. You're saying that one of the guys in the King Pill Discord was talking about how right-wing Twitter is, like, if you think of right-wing Twitter as an entity, you could absolutely diagnose it with borderline personality disorder. It's just, we're so back, it's so over. We're so back, it's so over. We're so back, it's so over. No. What the vibe shift means is there is no, it's so over. Let me give you guys a reminder here. You got to chill out. You need to calm down. You need to focus and not be yanked one way or the other by each new news drop, because that's the purpose of the news drops. The purpose of the news drops are to demoralize and fracture the growing coalition on the right. That's the purpose of them. So when the regime does something to demoralize you, choosing to be demoralized by it is retarded. You can't then claim to be opposed to the regime because you're just functioning as its proxy. This is the way they recruit you, is by demoralizing you, by making you despair, because that's something they can work with. They can feed off of that energy like vampires. So stop fucking blackpilling. You got to chill. Melon says, I posted Pennsylvania Giga Chads until we won Pennsylvania. Coincidence? I think not. No black pilling. That's right. And yes, CG Constantine, you did take responsibility for your doomerism. You are forgiven. Reminder, we are permanently so back. There is never a it's so over. Every time someone it's so over posts, 1,000 libs are released from the crystal. So keep your dooming to your diary. Now, what are other options? So if let's run with either option 2 or option 3 here, where this is planned from the beginning. It was bait. It was the big ask, the beginning of a negotiation process, acting from a position of strength. I can put my super radical guy up. You can knock him down. You feel like you got to win, but then I just get the guy that I wanted anyways. There's that possibility. There's also we're going to try to get him through. But if after announcing him, engaging the response, and seeing how the Senate's going to react and getting the Senate majority leader and all that stuff, if after all that plays out, it turns out it's not going to be possible to get him through, so we're going to go to our fallback option. I don't think you're not having to project a tremendous amount of political competence to assume they might be thinking this way. In fact, Trump is notoriously known for this type of strategy. So you're not having to trust the plan to project something like this. He's got an extremely competent group of people around him who know what they're doing. So what might some of the alternatives be? Well, one might be Kash Patel. It's kind of interesting that the rumors have been so loud and strong about Kash Patel for FBI director, and yet it hasn't happened. They've been signaling it really, really hard. It's been leaked. It's been talked about. There's a lot of people who are very close to Trump who are expecting it to happen. But it just hasn't happened, which is kind of interesting. Is that because they're waiting for certain things to play out, and so then Kash Patel is the fallback from Matt Gaetz, and they have somebody else for FBI director? There's a possibility. There's also Trump's personal lawyers. Emil Rove, who I think is the assistant to the director, he's nominated for assistant to the director, and what's the other guy's name? His name just escaped from my mind, but he's the current appointee or current nominee for deputy AG. Sorry, I said FBI director. I meant attorney general. So Emil Rove is the assistant to the attorney general, and I can't remember. I'm waiting for somebody to drop in the chat here who the current appointee for deputy attorney general is. But he's Trump's personal lawyer who represented him on this criminal case in New York. So he could be the fallback. Blanche, yes, Blanche. So there's another possibility. There's also rumors of, there's rumors about Mike Davis, who's the guy who told Fannie Willis that she is, Todd Blanche. Thank you, Pete. Mike Davis is someone who Steve Bannon was saying a while back was a candidate for attorney general. He has kind of deflected from it a few different times, and this is his tweet today. He said, again, best options, Mark Paoletta, Chris Landau, Mike Lee, not me. So Mike Davis is removing himself from contention. He said, again, there is 0% chance I'm going back into government. 0. I kind of suspect, we talked about the Doge yesterday, and one of the things the Doge is going to be doing, I think, is bringing, acting as a legal agent for getting certain things up to the Supreme Court, and I think he may be involved with that. Another one is Attorney General Andrew Bailey, the Missouri Attorney General. Eric Doherty said, Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey is on Trump's short list of potential AG picks. Thoughts? Quote, since becoming Attorney General, Bailey has launched dozens of lawsuits against the Biden administration and sought to defend the state on a number of conservative issues. Army veteran, law degree from the University of Missouri, sitting AG of Missouri, worked in State Attorney General's office, and was an assistant county prosecutor and state government lawyer. He's a bulldog. Bad Hombre here said, Missouri AG Andrew Bailey would be a fucking pit bull as AG. He has led the charge and single-handedly kicked the Biden-Harris administration's ass on multiple fronts. Student loan forgiveness scam, unlawful rewrite of Title IX, the Second Amendment, censorship, and CHV and mass parole for illegals. So he's another contender. Ken Paxton has been rumored for a long time. I kind of don't think that's going to happen. But there's lots of other people who it could be who would be just as good as Matt Gaetz and wouldn't necessarily have the baggage along with it. So there's no blackpilling. Now they're $2 Brazilian from CG Constantine. He says, Project 2025 will give away free Mustangs, unrelated. Yeah, we're bringing back the Mustang, folks. All right. Now, this is a deep dive that I've been doing for the past several days. I've followed the whole Bitcoin thing for a long time. I went deep on it a few different times, and I generally understand it, but it's like I can kind of capture the gist, but then trying to go through the mechanics and remember all the details and everything, I don't have the brain for the details like that. But I've followed along and been very well convinced that Bitcoin is inevitable. I also have been listening to this guy, Michael Saylor, for a while, ever since I saw his What is Money podcast series with Robert Breedlove, which is absolutely tremendous. It's not just Bitcoin. Like, if you want to understand energy, because that's what Saylor says, Bitcoin is digital energy. If you want to understand, he does a recap of the way that human beings have managed and projected energy and stored energy for all of human history, the history of money, and then by the time you get to the 4th episode, if you're just going to listen to one in the series, listen to episode 4, where he talks about Bitcoin as digital energy. So I've been aware of him for a few years now, and then started seeing more and more headlines talking about his company, MicroStrategy, and what they're doing right now. And this is very interesting because the incoming Trump administration is extremely pro-crypto. All of the big crypto talking heads and the people who are constantly talking about it and promoting it and innovating in it have all gravitated into the Trump orbit. And he has signaled his very strong support for it. Keep in mind also the backdrop of all of this being an incoming sovereign debt collapse. So we are primed for a major restructuring of the entire economy. there's an increasing and rapidly accelerating increasing demand for some sort of stable asset to move into. So this makes MicroStrategy's recent strategy very, very interesting. Now it's pretty complex, and I'm not a quant bro. Like I've never done any investing myself. None of this is investing advice. Like I can't be more clear about that. Go do your own research. I want to bring this stuff onto people's radars because I'm seeing it happening a lot. And the markets, the conversation markets are still kind of segmented. You've got all the political talk over here, and then you've got the Bitcoin talk, but these things are coming, these things are connecting. Big things are happening. Howard Lutnick, as Commerce Secretary, is very interesting because he's a big proponent of Bitcoin. He understands it very well. And he's not just like some rich guy who sort of has an understanding of, he's like, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. But no, he actually has a deep understanding of the mechanics of it. So I want to bring some of this stuff to your guys' attention and try to explain as best as I can what I'm understanding from it, with the recognition here that I'm not the expert you should listen to on this. I'm pointing you to the experts. So here's a presentation from Saylor that will kind of give you a picture of the way that he's looking at this.
With every other asset on Earth, anything else you can own, houses, gold, silver, commodities, stocks, bonds, when the price goes up, the supply increases. If I increase the price of any stock by a factor of 10, the company issues more stock, of course. Bitcoin's the only thing in the world that's inelastic price. If the price of Bitcoin triples, you can't make any more. If the price goes up by a factor of 1,000,000, you can't make any more. In engineering, there's something called conservation of energy. And the whole point of conservation of energy is energy can either be made or destroyed. There has to be conservation of it. The mathematical metaphor and mathematical analogy to that is proper math. 10 plus 10 equals 20. 2 plus 2 equals 4. If 10 plus 10 ever starts equaling 18, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
If you have a swimming pool with a leak, if I have an electric system with a short circuit, if I have a leak in my engineering system, nothing works. Nothing in the world of ocean engineering, aeronautical engineering, electrical engineering, nothing works unless you respect conservation of energy. The problem with inflation is inflation does not respect conservation of energy. I've got a leak in the system. I've designed a currency which is not conservative. So properly understood, if you said, I want a conservative money supply, a conservative money supply would be there's $10 billion in the economy and nobody prints anymore.
Right.
And that's the Austrian economic sound money principle. Bitcoin is a conservative monetary system. It's the first system that respects the laws of thermodynamics, and the laws of physics, and the laws of math, which means it is true and pure. It has integrity. If you have integrity, if you have something which is true and pure, and you have durability, then you can build a family around it, a life around it, a company around it, or a civilization around it. Steel is concentrated energy in metallic form. You ever walk in a steel plant and you look at the energy going into steel refining? It's concentrated energy. The history of the human race is the civilization that channels energy most effectively always wins. Steel trumps iron. Iron trumps bronze. Bronze trumps rocks. Bows and arrows trump the guy with the spear. The guy with the spear beats the guy with the knife. It's always a matter. If you have air power, you beat land power. Sea power beats the army. And nuclear power trumps everybody. And so if I have steel, I have concentrated metallic energy, I can create a skyscraper punched up 100 stories in New York. How long will it last? 100 years. How long will a steel ship last? Longer than you will last, as long as it doesn't corrode. Wooden ships? Not so much. Wooden ships rot, right? You want to build a building and punch it up against gravity and hold it 100 years, you need concentrated energy. If you want to build a trust fund that'll last 100 years, how do you save $100,000 for 100 years and give it to your great-grandkids? You put it in the US dollar, you lose 90.
This is a very good point right here, because what I'm seeing a lot of people reacting to what MicroStrategy is doing and missing the broader context of the market that they're targeting and what the available alternatives are. So if you're in the mindset of, I want to take $100,000 and I want it to persist for $100 in value and I want it to persist for 100 years, what are my options? Which option is going to be least bad? I have $100,000, I want to put it somewhere, and I want to be assured that in 100 years, I will have as close to $100,000 as possible. So you could consider all of these different options, and then you start stacking options on top of this as well, like having accessibility, ability to transport it, the cost of transporting it, the speed, the feasibility, all these sorts of things. So you're not just looking at Bitcoin compared to the ideal asset. You're looking at it compared to the available assets in existence right now.
Not so much. Wooden ships rot, right? You want to build a building and punch it up against gravity and hold it 100 years, you need concentrated energy. If you want to build a trust fund that'll last 100 years, how do you save $100,000 for 100 years and give it to your great-grandkids? You put it in the US dollar, you use 99% of your economic energy. You put it in gold, gold supply doubles every 30 years. The gold bankers keep inflating the gold, maybe you lose 90% of your economic energy. But that would be a lucky happenstance because just about every country on earth seized the gold from their citizens in the last 100 years. Everybody, even the U.S., they take your gold.
Yeah.
So you want to save money for 100 years. You can't do it with currency. You can't do it with gold. Which company's going to be around 100 years? You want to put $100,000 into real estate in Florida? Can you buy $100,000? Let's say you could. 2% tax, 4% maintenance fee, 4% of $100,000, $4,000 a year. Your money's not going to last 100 years. How do I preserve my property, which is economic energy, which is capital, which is money? How do I preserve that? I need something harder, more durable. I need a steel. I need an economic steel. Steel is concentrated metallic energy. Bitcoin is concentrated digital energy. It's energy in digital form. I eliminated the friction on energy. What's the half-life of energy? If I take a megawatt of power and I sell it at 12 cents a kilowatt hour, I have about $1 million. Okay, I'll give you $1 million of electricity. How long can you hold it in a battery? You lose 2% a month. You can't hold it very long. You're going to lose 24% depletion rate in a battery of electricity. How do you send $1 million of electricity from New York to Tokyo? You can't. You can send electricity 500 miles over a power line, you'll lose 6%. Send it 10 times, you'll lose 60%. It doesn't move. Convert that energy, that electricity, into digital energy, a la Bitcoin. You upgrade it. If you were to convert a megawatt of power via a Bitcoin miner into Bitcoin, you'd have about $5 million worth of Bitcoin. You can hold it forever. You can send it to Tokyo for a nickel. You can put it in a trust fund. Bitcoin's going up 170% a year for a decade. The S&P 500 index is going up 14% a year on average for a decade. Gold, it's flat. It's not going anywhere. It's getting demonetized. It's a dead rock in a basement. It's not fast enough. You can't put gold on an iPhone. Gold's getting depleted, inflated, and manipulated away by the bankers and the miners. So Bitcoin is simply pure economic energy. These engineers, Satoshi and all of Satoshi's compatriots.
What's funny is that I know Saylor would not be a fan of putting a picture of an old Asian dude and implying that he's Satoshi.
What they did is created an engineered monetary asset on an open, permissionless network that anybody could participate in. Any country, any company, any individual. You don't need a bank. You don't need to ask permission. It is the ultimate egalitarian system.
Okay, so that's a picture of how he's visualizing it. So Michael Saylor is putting his balls on the table. That's the takeaway from here, from this, is leaving aside the actual viability of the strategy. What I'm saying is Michael Saylor has spent the last 4-ish years publicly explaining exactly how he sees all of this. He will go talk to anybody about it and deliver his message on what he believes with it. He firmly, clearly believes every single thing he's saying, and now he's absolutely putting his balls on the table. This is a related clip I wanted to put in here. This is Mark Moss explaining sovereign nation FOMO, where demand is going parabolic with Bitcoin's fixed supply. Because I think this is the backdrop that everyone is also missing here.
Now, every nation is trying to figure out, well, who's going to move first and how fast are they going to move. Now, the interesting thing to understand about this is that this is all creating what I'm calling sovereign FOMO, right? Each sovereign nation has fear of missing out. And we have sovereign FOMO where demand is going parabolic, but it's going into an immovable object or basically a fixed supply. So the thing with commodities, so oil, uranium, copper, silver, etc., the thing with commodities, and Bitcoin as a commodity, is that it's unlike an equity. We set the price of a commodity based off of supply and demand. Now, the supply of oil is very hard to dictate, right? I mean, we have all the different nations pumping in different schedules and different time frames. But with Bitcoin, we have a fixed supply, 21 million. So it takes the supply side out of the equation. So all we have to really pay attention to is the demand side. So we know that, like I said, Bitcoin has 21 million. Now, here's where things get interesting. Let me break down a little bit of math for you. So here's just 2 buyers. Now, I've done videos talking about Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. I talked about the infinite money glitch. Maybe we can link that video in the show note down below. You should understand what Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy is doing. But here we have some math. So there, right now, we have about 164,000 Bitcoin being produced per year through mining. 164,000 per year. Now, per Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy plans to buy 175,000 Bitcoin per year for the next 3 years. Just one company, just one. Then Senator Lummis's bill, the United States government, says they want to buy 200,000 Bitcoin per year. So just two people, just the US and MicroStrategy, plan to buy 375,000 Bitcoin per year. The problem is there's only 164,000 being created per year, which means there's way more demand than there's supply. Now, this is just two buyers. This is not accounting for the sovereign FOMO that's about to happen. And now you can start to see how quickly this can run away. Now, let me show you a couple other things. Now, we can see right here, this is Bitcoin on the exchanges. So this gold line is the Bitcoin price, and this green line is the amount of Bitcoin that's available to buy currently on exchanges. And you can see as the price goes up, the available Bitcoin in the ecosystem to buy right now is going down. Now, there's always going to be Bitcoin to buy. So for everybody that's going to go, yeah, then everyone's going to hoard it, and all these people that got a first mover advantage, lucky for them. No, there's always going to be Bitcoin available at the right price, supply and demand. That's how this works. But we can see how this is already setting the stage for FOMO. Now, we can look at this chart, which I think is pretty interesting. And this shows the amount of Bitcoin addresses that have at least one Bitcoin in them. And what we can see is there's about 1 million addresses, wallets, that have one Bitcoin in them. Now let's think about this for a second. In the United States, there's about 22 million millionaires. 22 million people have at least $1 million. Okay, but there's only 21 million Bitcoin. And only 1 million so far have even one Bitcoin. In the world, there's about 60 million millionaires. And there's only 21 million Bitcoin. Do the math. You can see, and now this is not accounting for the MicroStrategies and all the other corporations coming on board. This is not accounting for the sovereign FOMO that's about to happen. And what this does is it sets a floor on the price. Okay, so this is very interesting. So when you think about buyers, whether it's me or you, or maybe a hedge fund, right? You're like a price-conscious buyer. I want to buy on dips. If the price goes up, maybe I'll sell a little bit. I won't sell a little bit, but I'll certainly buy on dips. I'm trying to sort of trade around and find the right price floor. But some buyers, like nations, for example, are not price sensitive. So Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy, for example, is not price sensitive. They just bought MicroStrategy, just acquired another $2 billion worth of Bitcoin just a week ago at 80,000. And he says he's going to continue to buy every top along the way. So no matter what the price is, they just buy on a regular basis, dollar cost averaging in. Nation states are very similar. They will just continue to buy. They're not trying to trade around the price. So what that does is it sets a floor. So we have nations who are not price sensitive, corporations like MicroStrategy who are not price sensitive, and they're buying more than is being produced. So that means there's more demand, a floor of more demand than there is available supply, which is pretty interesting. And as I said, we know there is certainly not enough to go around.
So the takeaway from this here is he's indicating you've got this fixed supply and you have this price floor that's been created by the fact that there is this bare minimum of demand. And you can argue all you want about Bitcoin itself or your personal opinion of it, but you can't escape the fact that these institutional forces are rapidly onboarding Bitcoin adoption as fast as possible, and you can begin gaming out what's going to happen as a consequence of that. As it begins achieving this network effect, you can begin projecting how it's going to go parabolic, regardless of the underlying conversation about Bitcoin itself. So then what is MicroStrategy actually doing? Here's a quick little explainer.
Everyone is talking about MSTR. MicroStrategy is soaring because it operates as a leverage play on Bitcoin. Saylor has referred to MSTR equity as intelligent Bitcoin leverage, targeting 1.5x to 2x leverage on Bitcoin. This unique strategy creates an arbitrage.
So MicroStrategy is offering themselves as the opportunity for a leveraged play on Bitcoin for those who don't want to buy Bitcoin directly or who can't. And that's a very important, that second category is a very important segment of the market. The people who, or the institutions who want exposure to Bitcoin, but who cannot actually purchase Bitcoin directly. So MicroStrategy is offering them a leveraged play on Bitcoin.
Opportunity during bull markets, which Saylor and his executive team refer to as generating BTC yield. But how does this work? First, they borrow money to buy Bitcoin using convertible notes. Yes, a convertible note means this will eventually convert to equity at a higher share price, but for simplicity, it effectively enables MSTR to buy more Bitcoin using money they don't have. What does this do? Well, it creates leverage, which amplifies returns. Second, leverage creates a premium in bull markets. Leveraged Bitcoin exposure, like what MSTR offers, typically trades at a premium because it outperforms spot Bitcoin during a bull run. What's special about MSTR is that they've borrowed at extremely low 0% interest rates with no short-term liquidation risk. This minimizes downside risk while amplifying upside potential. Investors want MSTR because it offers a smarter, safer way to gain leverage exposure to Bitcoin, driving demand and further increasing the premium. Now, here's the key part. MSTR sells new shares at this premium to buy more Bitcoin. Since the market values leverage Bitcoin exposure highly in a bull run, MSTR can sell shares at inflated prices, use the proceeds to buy more Bitcoin, and still increase the Bitcoin per share for its shareholders. This process is accretive, meaning every step of the cycle benefits existing shareholders by increasing the BTC yield per share. I expect MSTR to continue being able to do this as long as the bull market continues and investors want leverage exposure to Bitcoin. Finally, they can repeat this process over and over again, maintain an intelligent amount of leverage by issuing convertible notes, which justifies a premium during a bull market, and continue exploiting the premium with accretive dilution, still benefiting shareholders and increasing their Bitcoin per share. This playbook has created somewhat of a black hole for Bitcoin. I expect it to continue until Bitcoin enters another bear market or we simply enter hyper-Bitcoinization. Thanks for watching, everyone, and see you next time.
All right, so as I'm sitting here trying to wrap my mind around this, I've listened to, I don't know, probably 50 hours of podcasts of people talking about this, but what they're doing is, even to people who are professionals, who are professional finance and trader professionals, like even they're having a hard time wrapping their mind around it. The complexity of the strategy, but it's actually, as I've been grasping it more and more, it's actually quite brilliant. If you consider, now you wouldn't want to do this strategy with every asset, but if you believe Bitcoin is what the Bitcoin maxis believe it is, it's the ultimate bet on that. And it's the ultimate short on basically every other currency, but particularly the US dollar. So I sat here and talked to Grok about it for a little bit, and I was seeing if it would give me something simple and concise, because I don't possess the language to actually explain it to a layman, even though I understand it. I haven't completely wrapped my mind around it yet. So I also wanted to see what Grok would do with it. So this is what it said. I said, explain Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy approach for an undergraduate level audience. So I'm going for not like explaining it to a kid, because it's going to be way too simplified, but also not like explaining it to Michael Saylor, you know. Michael Saylor is the founder and executive chairman of MicroStrategy, a company traditionally known for its business intelligence software. However, in recent years, especially since 2020, MicroStrategy has gained significant attention due to its unique financial strategy involving Bitcoin. Here's how it works, explained at an undergraduate level. Number one is the corporate treasury strategy. Normally, companies keep their cash reserves in traditional forms like bank savings, bonds, or money market funds to earn some interest. However, these options often yield very low returns, especially in a low interest rate environment. Number two, Bitcoin is a treasury reserve asset. Michael Saylor decided to use Bitcoin instead of traditional assets for MicroStrategy's cash reserves. The rationale was, one, an inflation hedge. Bitcoin is seen by some as a hedge against inflation since its supply is capped at 21 million coins, unlike fiat currencies, which can be printed in unlimited quantities. And number two is the potential for high returns. Bitcoin has historically shown the potential for significant appreciation in value over time. The execution is that MicroStrategy began buying Bitcoin with its cash reserves. The move was bold because Bitcoin is highly volatile, but Saylor believed in its long-term value increase. They raised debt to buy more Bitcoin under the assumption that Bitcoin's price growth would outpace the cost of borrowing. So you buy the Bitcoin, you have it as an asset on your balance sheet. For those who believe that Bitcoin is going to appreciate as an asset, they're willing to lend against that. And they're willing to lend at actually very low interest rates. So MicroStrategy can borrow against the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and then they can use that to go buy more Bitcoin and add it to their balance sheet, which enables them to borrow more. Because the people who are lending that money to them are getting a better return than they would if they put it elsewhere. They don't have a better option for that, either because there's something that doesn't have the potential, or because they're legally regulated away from being able to purchase it. So the people who believe in it, who actually believe in his business model, are willing to give this opportunity to him because he's positioned himself as the value proposition that they're offering is essentially securitizing Bitcoin. He describes it, I think I have it in a video I'll play here in a minute, but he describes it as basically like refining crude Bitcoin. So you pump crude Bitcoin in like crude oil, he refines it and sells it as gasoline. And that's giving these large institutional buyers, and then all of the people who want a volatility play, it's giving them access to Bitcoin in a way that protects some of their downside. Saylor often speaks about Bitcoin as part of a broader digital transformation in finance. He sees it as a move toward a digital economy where traditional financial institutions might play a lesser role. By adopting Bitcoin, MicroStrategy not only invests in it, but also helps legitimize cryptocurrency in the corporate world, which is also a big deal. Because once one company starts doing it, it makes it easier for more companies to start doing it. And the more companies that start doing it, the more companies will start doing it. The more popular it becomes, the more popular it will become. And so the people whose concern is like the stability, like they say it's too volatile. Well, the more people adopt it, the less volatile it'll become. And there's natural forces that are driving that volatility upward. So you want upward volatility. That's great. If the asset could suddenly spike in value, now you want to make sure it doesn't crater after that. But if there's forces that are going to cause upward volatility, that's a good thing. And there's a huge market for people who want to play in that, which means by providing this opportunity to not just be able to play with the volatility of Bitcoin, but to be able to play with the volatility of leveraged Bitcoin, you're going to draw all the more liquidity. You can draw all that more liquidity into that market, right as we're coming up on a potential liquidity crunch. So this is how he's creating this flywheel effect that's going to be pulling proxy investment into Bitcoin, and basically, in a sense, converting fiat to Bitcoin. If you assume that fiat is going to zero, then get as much of it as you can and convert it over to what you believe is the hardest asset. The risk and criticisms, Bitcoin's price can swing dramatically, which introduces significant risk to their balance sheet. Cryptocurrencies regulations can change, potentially impacting their legality or tax treatment. And that's the other big part of the context here, is that all of the momentum is building behind a very pro-crypto administration coming in. Because you might think that, the government wants to crack down on it. They don't want to have... No, if they crack down on it, they can't benefit from it. That's part of the secret sauce of Bitcoin. It's like a Trojan horse. If they want to maximize Bitcoin value because they've taken it on as an asset and maximizing its value is going to increase their own value, then they actually want maximal adoption of it. It aligns the incentives properly. So, as of the last update, the strategy has positioned MicroStrategy as one of the largest corporate holders of Bitcoin, making its financial health closely tied to Bitcoin's performance. So this guy here, BTC Gandalf, says, there was one part of the MicroStrategy thesis that didn't click in my head until now. Institutions that can only buy bonds are starving for a place to invest their capital and get decent return. MicroStrategy bonds are by far and away the best instrument for them to do that. Saylor has a virtually unlimited pool of capital to tap into. Am I getting this right? And then here's some really good... I'm going to post this on the Substack post for today where I post the episode. I put all the links to all the stuff that I went through today. I'm going to post this one here, the BTC Gandalf one, because people commented in the threads with a bunch of stuff that I listened to that if you want to dig deeper into this, go listen to these. Richard Byworth is a very good guy to listen to on this. He has this conversation with Pascal Hughley. And then there was another one down here a little more. This one here, the MicroStrategy Deep Dive with Jeff Walton. And I think there was one other one. If you go follow Richard Byworth, if you want to know more about this, follow it a little more from a guy who very much knows what he's doing, go follow Richard Byworth. He's a very interesting guy. It's at Richard Byworth on Twitter. And he's done a bunch of interviews recently, so you can also look those up. That's what I've been doing, is just finding these people who are interesting, who can weigh in on it, and then just going and listening to what they're talking about. So here is Michael Saylor explaining the MicroStrategy premium, why people are willing to pay a premium that other people don't seem to understand this. Everyone says it's a Ponzi scheme, and they don't understand the premium that people are paying for buying MicroStrategy.
Michael, there's a perception that your stock trades at a premium to the intrinsic value of Bitcoin that you hold in the core business. Is that your view? And if so, what explains it? Is that the Saylor premium?
No, that's only a perception of people that haven't been paying attention or don't really do any research. If you actually logged into our earnings call, or if anybody studied the company, that's kind of like saying there's a perception that Microsoft trades at a premium to its underlying assets. Well, yeah, it does. It trades 50 times greater than its net tangible assets. So does Apple, so does Standard Oil, so does every operating company. So the myth, right, the misunderstanding here is people don't understand what our operating business is. Our operating business is a treasury operation that's securitizing Bitcoin. And the primary use that we offer to the marketplace is we offer high volatility, high leverage equity, like 2x Bitcoin in the equity, or 1.5x Bitcoin. And that's very valuable. If you're an options trader or you're an investor, you would rather have 1.5x or 2x leverage on the equity. And the way that we create that in a systemic fashion is we strip the risk, the performance, and the volatility off of Bitcoin, and we sell fixed income instruments to the fixed income market that can't buy Bitcoin and doesn't want the equity and doesn't want the volatility. So when we sell a convertible bond, at a premium. We might sell $1 billion bond, and we would probably capture 750 million or more in the arbitrage on the day we do the deal. And then if we hold the bond 6 years and Bitcoin goes up 21% a year, we make $3 billion on the back end. So we generate $3.7 billion of shareholder gains by arbitraging the duration on cheap capital with the return on a crypto commodity. And the people that bought the bond can't buy Bitcoin. They're convertible arbitragers, or they're fixed income investors, or they're institutional investors, or they have capital tied up in a 401k retirement plan. So if you understand those things, you realize that, it's kind of like, and I use this analogy, Jan, it's like if you looked at Standard Oil and you said, well, the company seems to be trading at a premium to the oil reserves. Well, no joke. That's because the company has a refinery and it creates kerosene. You ever try to put crude oil in a rocket, or crude oil in a jet, or crude oil in your car, or pour crude oil on a highway? The point is, you can't. You need asphalt, you need gasoline, you need kerosene, you're refining it. You can't do the refining without the reserves. So the Bitcoin reserves that we have a practical use. The use is they're collateralizing the fixed income instruments, and then they're creating volatility and performance for the equity instruments, which feed the option instruments, which create the volatility. And all of those things together mean that we're just kind of like a transformer. You got 480 volt 3-phase power coming in one side of the property, and on the other side you want to run your daughter's hair dryer, or your washer and dryer, or your electric heater, or and
I think
we're stepping it down.
Most 3-phase electricity will blow out the hair dryer, but I get your point. I think it's
I'm actually making the point that 3-phase power is what I use to run my 500-ton yacht, but there's a massive transformer that steps it down, from the street. And what MicroStrategy is doing with its capital is it's transforming high voltage Bitcoin into low voltage securities. And so to focus upon the premium is completely missing what's really going on here. And I'll give you one more number, which I think is pretty important, which is, today, if you look at my tweet, I just noted we generated a yield of 41.8% this year, which is the equivalent of 79,130 BTC. That at 90,000 something a coin, that's $7.3 billion. And so if I didn't tell you what we did, and if I didn't tell you how much Bitcoin we have, and the only thing you knew about my company was we generated 7.3 billion in earnings delivered in Bitcoin, and we're growing more than 75% a year, how much do you think the company's worth?
Tremendous amount.
Yeah,
I think that's a great.
And then you would add in the Bitcoin position. So So
Right.
really, the people that are focused on the premium are ignoring the fact that that's a company generating billions and billions of dollars of shareholder value a year in hypergrowth mode.
So so I had another kind of bouncing around just a little bit here, but now that you guys have heard that clip, this is some commentary on it. This guy says, I have some thoughts about MicroStrategy. I heard Saylor say something yesterday and I can't stop thinking about it. The biggest bear case I hear against MicroStrategy is the following. The stock trades at 3 to 4x its net asset value against the value of their Bitcoin. The multiple is unsustainable, therefore it's overvalued. Saylor said something along the lines of this when responding to this bear case. Wait, so Microsoft does $100 billion in profits per year. Why are you paying $3.4 trillion for that? This really made me think. Microsoft offers products and services, Office, Copilot, laptops, cloud, etc., that they generate revenue on. The market then assigns a value to that revenue over net income and gives it a multiple. That is exactly what MicroStrategy is doing, just not with conventional products like laptops. MicroStrategy is creating a Bitcoin treasury by collateralizing their stock for 0% interest cash to buy more Bitcoin. As a result, the products and services they offer is one of the most liquid option markets that leverages against their equity because they are leveraging their stock against the arbitrage opportunity of the upside on Bitcoin. You might not like the product or service they offer, just like you might like Apple laptops over Microsoft ones, but it is a product or service that people are willing to pay a premium for. I'm not saying MicroStrategy is cheap. It is obviously contingent on Bitcoin, but I do believe that there is a reasonable argument for why people pay the premium against their underlying Bitcoin position. Multiples change all the time, as we've seen for big tech, but the market gives a multiple against the underlying assets of a company if they believe in the value of their products and services. The same is happening with MicroStrategy. So then the convertible bonds are what are really interesting about all of this. And this is a strategy that, as of right now, can only work in the United States in the way that they're doing it. So they're using this at-the-market strategy, which, to my understanding, doesn't exist outside the U.S. market. It involves issuing shares directly into the market at the current market price, which allows the company to raise capital efficiently without the need for a traditional public offering. This strategy is often used to fund its ongoing Bitcoin acquisition strategy. MicroStrategy issues the convertible bonds to investors with a low coupon rate, typically below what traditional bonds would offer. So this is going to, for a pension fund. So a pension fund is what they have the opportunity to invest in European bonds, treasuries. If they compare that to this is a much better option. These bonds can be converted into MicroStrategy stock at a set conversion price. So they issue a bond at basically 0%. The person wants to buy that bond because it offers a better alternative than the other bonds that are available. And if the stock price gets up to a certain point, that bond, that debt, converts into stock. These bonds can be converted into MicroStrategy stock at a set conversion price, but it's usually above the market price at issuance, but offers a potential for equity participation if the stock price increases. This conversion feature makes the bonds attractive despite the low interest because investors can benefit from any significant rise in the stock price, effectively giving them an option on MicroStrategy's future performance tied to Bitcoin's value. And a lot of people have been observing the large number of shorts that exist on MicroStrategy. And this is one thing that Richard Byworth explained really well on one of the podcasts. And I'll put the links to the podcasts themselves in the show notes so you guys can read them or listen to them yourselves. But he said that part of the strategy here, when the investors buy these convertible bonds, is they also put a corresponding short on it. So they're protecting. They're ensuring that their return is within a particular margin. So that's why it's actually not really over shorted in the way that you would normally think if you saw a whole bunch of I think it's 29% or something like that. You wouldn't see that with a normal stock. It would be a really bad sign for the stock. But in this case, it's just all of these convertible bonds investors who are just correspondingly shorting it to protect their downside. But what all of this is doing is creating this flywheel effect, this black hole effect, pulling all of this additional liquidity and capital into this market that otherwise wouldn't have a way in there, even though they want to be in there. So the flywheel effect here, it refers to a self-reinforcing cycle that increases the company's value and its ability to acquire more Bitcoin. So the stock price increases. As Bitcoin's price rises, their stock price tends to go up because the value of their Bitcoin holdings increases. With a higher stock price, MicroStrategy can issue more shares at a higher price through the at-the-market program that I was just describing, or convert existing bonds into equity, raising more capital. This capital is then used to buy more Bitcoin, increasing their holdings. More Bitcoin holdings further increase the perceived value of MicroStrategy, often leading to further stock price appreciation. This cycle continues, creating a flywheel effect where each step enhances the others, theoretically leading to exponential growth in both Bitcoin holdings and the company valuation, as long as Bitcoin's price or perception continues to rise or remains positive. Now, this is a big qualification, and part of the reason why MicroStrategy is doing this and why other companies are beginning to mimic them, there's at least two others so far. One of them is called, I think, Similar Scientific, and then there's one in, I think it's called Metaplanet, that's in Japan. There's other companies that are beginning to do this, but they're never actually, MicroStrategy is encouraging other companies to do this, but no other company is ever going to be able to catch up to them because they've got such a huge head start on the market. But the reason that they're doing this and the reason why other companies are willing to do this is because they do believe in the future of Bitcoin. So this is an opportunity for people to actually really start to bet on that directly. And there's plenty of traders out there who are happy to play with the volatility option, so it draws even more liquidity in. And it's getting more and more people proxy invested in Bitcoin. That's the biggest part of all of this. This is why it's such a Saylor like carrying his balls around in the wheelbarrow. Because he's making a bet with his reputation, his company. He's putting himself massively on the line because he believes this is the trajectory of Bitcoin, and he recognizes that by incentivizing and accelerating institutional adoption of it, it just reinforces the vision that he's expecting. So he's basically, at the institutional level, dollar cost averaging Bitcoin. And he's placed himself in the middle of this flywheel effect. And the backdrop of it is this possibility of strategic Bitcoin reserves for the United States. Here's Senator Cynthia Lummis, who's one of the biggest proponents of this. She is beloved among the Bitcoin community. And remember, when we talk about the Bitcoin community, we're talking about Elon Musk. We're talking about Peter Thiel. We're talking about Mark Andreessen. We're talking about many of the wealthiest and most powerful and most forward-looking people in the country. That's part of the Bitcoin community. So here's Cynthia Lummis talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserves.
The other thing is the proposal that I have and that President Trump has discussed about a strategic Bitcoin reserve or strategic Bitcoin stockpile, where the United States would acquire and hold Bitcoin for 20 years. Because of the way that Bitcoin has been appreciating since inception, this would be an asset that could help shore up the US dollar as the world reserve currency and serve as a reserve that could be used to reduce the national debt significantly. You know, the American people are still hurting from inflation, from high prices, and they want the national debt reduced. These are ways to do it with an asset that is immutable, can easily be held by the federal government in a variety of vaults, and that states can participate in as well. So this is the gold standard digital asset, and a strategic Bitcoin reserve is the way to embed it.
You know, we got off the gold standard a long time ago. My question is how much you would spend tax dollars at a time where we're talking about trying to reduce costs. How much would you spend on Bitcoin as part of this reserve?
We wouldn't have to spend any new dollars. We have reserves at our 12 Federal Reserve banks, including gold certificates that could be converted to current fair market value. They're held at their 1970s value on the books, and then sell them into Bitcoin. That way, we wouldn't have to use any new dollars in order to establish this reserve. The United States already holds over 200,000 Bitcoin in the asset forfeiture funds. So that would be the initial source of Bitcoin. So no new money spent on this reserve.
So if the United States suddenly decides to formally take a large position on Bitcoin publicly, what's that going to do to the rest of the world? And what's that going to do to the perceived value and desirability of Bitcoin? Here's a Saylor take on it.
The US dollar is great as a currency. It's not great as capital. All the Bitcoiners know this. And so, and money, what is money? Well, money is fungible, a fungible liquid asset. Well, the problem, why is real estate can't be money? Because you can't buy a cup of coffee with a building in London, right? A building's not money. Right. It is capital. It's a liquid, non-fungible capital. How about a share of Apple stock? Is it money? Not really. It's fungible capital. Nvidia stock, Apple stock's fungible capital, but it's not real. You can't like buy a cup of coffee on Saturday morning with your Apple stock. So capital assets in the 20th century aren't money. Currency is money, but currency is not a good capital asset. Post Satoshi, all of a sudden we have a money, which is a capital asset, which is Bitcoin. And now the significance of what's going on with the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is the United States is going to own the world's reserve capital network, Bitcoin. We're going to mine Bitcoin. The Bitcoin miners run the world reserve capital network. Bitcoin holders own the world reserve capital. If you want a prescription for prosperity in the 21st century, there's no better prescription than to own the world's reserve capital, run the world's reserve capital network, benefit from the growth of the world's reserve capital asset. And the logic from the United States point of view is we already run the world reserve currency. Now we'll own the world's reserve capital network. If people ever recapitalize their sovereign debt with Bitcoin, it will be a benefit to the American people, the American corporations, the American way of life, the American ideology, and it's a way out. Like we talked about, Natalie, we've talked about the despair of the working class that can't get ahead, and the hope that Bitcoin brings to the working class. An individual or family can buy Bitcoin. Oftentimes, we don't really empathize with the despair of a corporation or the despair of a bank. Sometimes we don't really empathize with them. But what about the despair of a bank which is capitalized on a collapsing asset capital? What about the despair of a corporation? 1% of the companies in the S&P 500 make all the money. The others work hard. When I found Bitcoin, I was in despair. I had worked for a decade. I had spent 20,000 man years attempting to do everything under the sun. I could not get ahead. Right. And I was the same me. I wasn't stupid, right? You look at me and say, well, this is Michael Saylor worked as hard as he could for a decade and could not get ahead, right? And the most pernicious thing you can do to someone is you make them think that they're just not smart enough, and the reason they're failing is because they're not smart and they don't work hard enough. And then you realize, no, the system is rigged against you. So what does this mean? What does the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve mean? It means that Bitcoin is hope for the people, but it means that once the United States embraces Bitcoin as the world's reserve capital network and it builds that Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, the path is open for corporations in the United States to recapitalize on Bitcoin. And the path is open for banks to recapitalize on Bitcoin. And now corporations don't have to die. Banks don't have to die. Institutions are already off the hook. Individuals are already off the hook. For an endowment and for a family and for a private company, it's your choice if you choose the asset which is going up 60% a year or the asset which is going down 6% a year. That's your choice. But it was never a choice for the banks in the U.S. It was never a choice for operating companies in the U.S. And so what Senator Lummis is doing is really much more profound than we're going to buy some Bitcoin. What she is doing is she is laying the ethical, economic, technical foundation to revitalize the banking system in the U.S. and in the world, all the public companies in the U.S. and then the world, all of the institutions. And she's spreading the American way of life, the American ideology. And what will first happen is America will do it, but eventually every other country in the world, in Europe, in South America, in the Middle East, they will all look at what we're doing and they will follow us in the same way that, when we started building airports and airplanes, they followed us. And when we started embracing electricity, they followed us. And when John D. Rockefeller started, creating gasoline and kerosene, the world wanted to buy it. And the world wanted to buy Henry Ford's automobiles. They're going to want Bitcoin, and they're going to want digital capital. And this is really, It's a pivotal moment in the history of the world. I mean, the Trump, Vance, Musk movement, when we made this choice, are we going to embrace technology and Starlink and electric vehicles and entrepreneurship? Are we going to give the people their freedom back? Are we going to embrace innovation? Right? That choice that took place on Tuesday, November 5th, that catapulted us into a whole new world of possibilities, and that made the strategic Bitcoin reserve possible, and that made the recapitalization of the world on sound economic, ethical, and engineering principles possible.
And I'll say, if you're paying attention, if you're watching what's happening here, the Trump administration is coordinating, is in communications with Michael Saylor. This is a coordinated strategy, and he has people who are close to Trump who are consulting with him, and he's consulting with them as well. This is a coordinated effort that's being pulled forth as a core part of the MAGA agenda. We talk about America establishing its position as the predominant imperial power over the next century or so. This is going to be a core part of it. It already is. This is something they've already made a priority. So I gotta get through this kind of quick here because we've got to leave shortly. But let me cover this stuff with the bro economy. So The Atlantic published this article by Annie Lowry. The 3 pillars of the bro economy, day trading, sports betting, and crypto, are about to get bigger. Just 50 days before his re-election, Donald Trump took the time to hawk a new crypto platform. If the country does not build out its cryptocurrency ecosystem, quote, we're not going to be the biggest and we have to be the biggest and the best, Trump said in a live stream on X. It's very young and very growing, and if we don't do it, China's going to do it. The live stream was sponsored by World Liberty Financial, which has given Trump the title Chief Crypto Advocate, and his sons Barron, Eric, and Donald Jr. that of Web3 Ambassador. World Liberty Financial is the brainchild of Zach Folkman, the creator of an advisory firm called Date Hotter Girls LLC, and Chase Harrow, an affiliate marketer who previously sold colon cleanses. It's a get-rich-quick scheme and not one that seems designed to enrich its customers. It is also an emblem of a financial world that Trump's election seems set to supercharge, populated by young men who have seen their economic prospects stagnate, their faith in the United States falter, and a champion in a baggy business suit and a red baseball cap emerge. Think of it as the bro economy. A volatile, speculative, and extremely online casino in which the house is already winning big. Obviously, there's a narrative to drive here. Its first major market sector, day trading. I don't mean old-fashioned small-dollar equity investing done at the kitchen table. I mean hyper-speculative betting done with borrowed money on mobile apps as investors shitpost an infinite scroll. Market-moving rumors come not from corporate conferences, but from sites like YouTube and the subreddit Wall Street Bets. Tagline, like 4chan found a Bloomberg terminal. Users at times coordinate to buy up a certain stock with the explicit goal of screwing over a hedge fund that had bet the stock would go down. That's what happened 4 years ago with GameStop. Redditors helped to push the share price up 8,000%. Now so-called meme stocks are resurgent. GameStop spiked this spring. Tesla climbed when Trump won. Tesla is both a blue chip stock and a meme stock. Elon Musk, the company's founder, is one of Trump's biggest donors and closest advisors, as well as being a storied internet troll and an owner of the social media platform X. And Tesla is also has some major Bitcoin holdings as well. This rally seems unsustainable, even if you believe in the long-term growth story for the stock, David Wagner of Aptus Capital Advisors told Bloomberg. It makes no sense. Yeah, of course it doesn't, you old fuddy-duddy. As noted by the Federal Reserve Bank at Lewis, this trading behavior is in part driven by market democratization. A decade ago, the fintech firm Robinhood pioneered commission-free trading, allowing individuals to buy stocks or other financial assets without paying any fees. Today's apps also allow users to purchase fractions of a stock and do not set minimum balances, ushering in less wealthy investors. The barriers to entry are low, yet the risks are high. That's a great place for a bunch of young men to go. This is something Saylor was talking about in an interview I listened to a few days ago. He talked about how one of the best things about the crypto world is that it's a place where young men who are being shut out of all these other domains have an opportunity to go. All they need is a smartphone. And they could go into the crypto space and start building stuff and taking risks and expressing their will. It's the domain of the future because that's where the young people are right now. They're becoming masters of that domain because they've been frozen out of so many other parts of it. Today's young day traders tend to make frequent transactions and gravitate toward exotic trades when research shows that investors generate the best returns when they make simple investments infrequently. This is the old versus the new. This is the boomer truth regime dying. The apps encourage the piling on of risk through push alerts, promotions, and other gamifications. The second crucial market sector, sports betting. In 2018, the Supreme Court overturned a 1992 law banning commercial sports betting outside of Nevada. That paved the way for more than 36 states to okay the practice. 30 states also allow residents to make wagers online. It would be hard to overstate how much this has changed pro sports and the fan experience over the past half decade. Commentators talk about fantasy leagues and prop bets as much as they talk about the game. And it's changed the game itself. Because what happens is all of the guys who want to engage in daily fantasy sports, where they're like drafting teams and they're betting on which team's going to be the best, all of those guys want to micro-analyze every last little bit of strategy, player history, matchups, all these sorts of things. So it spawned a huge analytics industry. And the guys in that analytics industry who come up through that, I know this because I was a part of it, the guys who come up through that eventually have been started to get hired on by either major media organizations or by teams themselves. And then this approach, all the nerds taking all the data analytics approaches to breaking down teams and strategies and offenses and defenses and tactics and all this different stuff, then starts getting transposed into other industries. Advertisements for sportsbooks are ubiquitous. Millions of spectators keep DraftKings and FanDuel up on their second screen. An estimated 2 in 5 American adults engage in sport betting. 1 in 4 online bettors has wagered more than $500 in a single day. Americans staked $120 billion last year, double what they did in 2021. Many diehard fans love the rise of sports betting. It's entertaining, engaging, a way to support your favorite players and dunk on your friends. Still, in a survey, 37% of online bettors said they felt bad or ashamed for losing money. Nearly 40% said they bet more than they should. Nearly 20% said they lied about the extent of their betting, and the same share said they lost cash that was meant for their day-to-day financial obligations. A strong majority supported the federal government aggressively regulating the market to specifically protect consumers from compulsive gambling. Third and last is crypto, which boomed into the mainstream a decade ago. Today, roughly 1 in 3 young people has traded in or used crypto. Sites such as Robinhood and Coinbase make purchasing easy. Buying Bitcoin used to take significant know-how and days of waiting. The most recent bust in 2022 seems to have done little to deter crypto's most ardent fans. There might be more of them soon. For years, Trump was anti-crypto. I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air, he wrote on Twitter 5 years ago. He added, "We have only one real currency in the U.S., and it is stronger than ever, both dependable and reliable. It is by far the most dominant currency anywhere in the world, and it will always stay that way. It is called the United States dollar." Today, he's not just promoting shady crypto startups, he's promising regulation that would allow banks to offer crypto assets to clients, making the United States the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world. So, in a market that is getting absolutely bogged down by debt, there's a new opportunity to expand and incorporate a new batch of assets. And that some of these assets are legitimate, some of them not. But that needs to be determined so that the real ones are allowed to persist. Because this is what will facilitate the recapitalization of all these different financial institutions that are on the verge of collapse. Industry-friendly rules would lead to a flood of cash entering the crypto markets, enriching anyone with assets already in their wallets, but also increasing volatility and exposing millions more Americans to scams, frauds, and swindles. Scams, frauds, and swindles? You mean like Congress? You mean like the entire existing financial system? Day trading, sports betting, and cryptos are 3 floors in one bustling, high-stakes casino. Many folks trade crypto and meme stocks on the same platform, thumbing over to a second app to keep their sports bets going, thumbing over again to post their wins and losses. Apps have made the experience social. They've also made staking money as frictionless as ordering Uber Eats. The players in this casino are overwhelmingly young men, roughly 40% of whom are into sports betting and crypto. A smaller minority is actively trading. No surprise, Richard Reeves, the president of the American Institute for Boys and Men, told me when I called to ask about the bro economy. "Risk skews male, period, for good and for ill," he said. "There's this greater willingness, appetite for, vulnerability to, and tolerance of risk. Men taking risks is a good thing." He appreciated how the activities gave guys something to do together and talk about with one another. He also noted how many young men felt shut out of traditional wealth-building strategies such as homeownership. Still, the bro economy exploits its users' penchant for risk. Crypto companies and betting sites do not generate value. They take cash from their users, reshuffle it, and redistribute it while keeping a cut for themselves. Postmodern trading platforms encourage excess, making their margins on esoteric trades and superfluous volume. The casino lacks guardrails, not to benefit the bettors, but to benefit the house. You know why this is? Because the government has refused to even participate in establishing guardrails. This is why all the crypto people fucking hate the shit out of Gary Gensler, who interestingly just announced that he's going to be resigning on January 20th. There's an entire massive market here that has such great potential. It has lots of bad stuff in it, but yeah, there's lots of good stuff in there as well. And we're just shooting ourselves in the dick by holding it back. Musk and Trump have given young men something to aspire to, but their ascendance makes the stricter regulation of the bro economy unlikely, and in the case of crypto, makes deregulation a sure thing. Guys are about to lose billions and billions of dollars a year on apps designed to obscure risk and keep them coming back for a dopamine hit. Trump and Musk can afford to lose huge sums. Most young American men cannot. This is the longhouse. This is the longhouse right here. Nothing that she said is worth debating with her. She doesn't get a say. The great thing about the bro economy is it represents the ascendancy of men beginning to act like men again in the world and actually building things. Of course, they're speculative. Of course, there's lots of scams. Of course, there's lots of risk. Innovation is risky. Exploring an unknown world is risky. This is like young men are climbing aboard these ships to sail over to the new world. And the captains of the ships are subjecting them to unnecessary risk. You know, they might get scalped by savages, or they might get bit by a snake, or they might, fall off a waterfall and die. Yes, that's what it is to be a man. So all of this stuff is on net 100% a good thing, and I'm super white-pilled by the fact that the incoming administration is going to legitimize it as an actual place for innovation and growth and creativity. All right, guys, I got to get out of here because we got to go meet my dad. So I appreciate you guys showing up. Do me a favor and hit the like button. We're not going to make 100 today, I don't think, unless you guys can pull 18 likes out in the next couple of minutes. We may break our streak. But do me a favor, follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Go join the Kingpill Discord, kingpill.com, and like the stream, share it, and I'll be back tomorrow for another episode of the ASTROLABE. Until then, go to kingpill.substack.com, subscribe over there, and you can get the master thread of all the links that I covered today. Be dropped in there, and it also pushes out onto the podcast network, so you can listen to the audio version if you'd like. So until next time, hit the like button, oinks in the chat, and I give you Hulk.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America